All right, it's Texans Titans week. It is S&L, Landry Locker, Cody, Stoots, straight from practice. It's the Friday edition. We react to the final injury report at 4 o'clock. Let's pull that up right now. And if you're not subscribed to the podcast, do so on all podcast platforms. Type in Locker, Stoots, Texans Talk, and you'll be able to ride along with us as well as viewing on YouTube. Obviously, what sticks out right there is we have Foley Fatukasi. He is going to be out, so we will not see Foley Fatukasi. Danico Autry, though, very interesting. No practicing at all and still listed as questionable on the injury report, which I think might be a first this season that someone doesn't practice all week and is listed as questionable.
I want to say there was one other time, but it doesn't just jump off the page to me, but if there's a guy that you feel like with the way that they've talked about him that couldn't practice and then could play on a Sunday, it does feel like Danico Autry, just the way that this organization has talked about him since he arrived and was signed in the offseason. So I wouldn't be expecting that he is going to. I would tell you that it's more likely than he's not going to play, but it is notable that no practice all week. And they're like, yeah, he can still maybe go.
Blake Fisher's interesting. I know that in a perfect world, he doesn't play, at least their perfect world. But the concussion, no one can really pinpoint when the concussion happened with Blake Fisher. He did seem a little joyous today in the locker room, so I don't know if that means that he's trending in the right direction or not. But Blake Fisher out with the concussion. Kamari Lassiter, he missed last week with a concussion. Full participant, expect him to go. Derek Stingley good to go. And Will Anderson, he confirmed. He said, I'm playing. He didn't beat around the bush during open locker room. He said that he is playing. He's going to be active. Whether or not he's on a snap count will be determined.
Yeah, I mean, you ran through it there. The only hope is that you never have to see any Blake Fisher necessary snaps because you don't have Blake Fisher. So that'd be if Tunsil or Titus Howard needs to sit down for a second because of an injury. That'd be Zach Thomas or Nick Broker, depending on which tackle went out. And you don't want to see either one of those guys against a nasty Tennessee Titans defensive line.
Let's hear it from Will Anderson. Always smiling. Will Anderson confirms he's going to play. Last time, it should be noted, if he is on a snap count, you might say, damn, all shucks. Last time he was on a snap count against the Tennessee Titans, he played 12 snaps, if I'm not mistaken, and he had 2 sacks. Let's hear from Will Anderson, who is ready to go, to say the very least.
Anticipate being on a snap count of any sort?
I don't know what they got planned. I know I'm active though, and I know I'm playing. So.
Do you remember the last time you were on a snap count against the Titans?
I do. So, like I said, we don't know, but I'm grateful for this opportunity. I'm excited for this opportunity. I can't wait to go back out there with the guys and go perform with them.
There you go. So confirmed that he was playing. I don't know if they were trying to be secretive about that or not, but
with no injury designation, when the injury report comes out, he's playing.
Yeah, so there you go. Yeah. He's
we got a couple hours head start on the official designation from Will Anderson.
He's good to go.
It's not like it was Wednesday when he was like, hey, I'm playing. And everyone's like, wow, he's got 2 more practices to go.
And our rule's always been if they talk, that means they expect him to play. Like we can kind of see between the lines of that. Like if you join us on this channel, like they can, as soon as they talk, that means they're going to play. Yeah. Most likely, more times than not. I would say the D-line's interesting because it's one of the strengths of the team, but we really haven't seen it fully together all season long. You know, you have the Autry suspension to start the year. Then Edwards is playing some good ball. He goes down. Will Anderson is the player of the month. He goes down. Daniil and Settle have been the 2 constants on that D-line. But there have been guys, it's just kind of like a rotation of production, but you haven't even seen all those guys at the right time, which is crazy because they've played really effing well.
It's credit to the 2 guys that have been there basically all year long and Settle and Daniil Hunter. It's also credit to Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans for building that depth. I mean, D'Amico Ryans is going to tell you basically at every turn, you can't ever have enough defensive linemen. And they've had a lot. They've had a lot of options. They've had guys that they could rotate through. I mean, Jerry Hughes hurt and then, back active. Now he plays a whole, small bit of the snaps, but he's available to them. And I'm telling you, one of these days, this defensive line is going to be whole and healthy, and it's going to be really exciting to watch. I'm talking Fatukasi and Edwards and Settle and Autry and Hunter and Anderson. And it's going to be a fun defensive line to watch. We just haven't seen it yet because of injuries, suspensions, and the like. But, hey, maybe if that defensive line is healthy as healthy can be and all together and not suspended come, say, I don't know, playoff time, everybody be happy with that.
Yeah, and I think it has been exciting to watch too. And maybe this makes them better, having to each step up,
getting more opportunities. Tim Settle was a backup player until he got a couple of more snaps because Fadakasi wasn't playing whole games, and then Settle's been starting in Fadakasi's absence, and he was starting in Edwards' absence as well. So, he kind of proved himself with additional reps, and he's playing the best ball of his career right now.
Corey says not playing players like Harris, et cetera, is considered strategy for playoffs. Not when it comes to Christian Harris. They don't even know what's going to happen there. They haven't ramped him up or anything like that. So yeah, they're definitely not forcing him out there, but I don't think that's like strategic. You can say Nico was strategic. You can maybe say that they could be strategic with Will Anderson, and maybe they'll be strategic with other guys. There's nothing strategic about the Christian Harris situation. Christian Harris is hurt, and they don't even know. They say that you'd like to see him come back after the bye, but that's not like a 100% certainty.
When he's back, he's back, and I guess there exists the chance that he is not ever going to be back. They're not hurting at linebacker.
Not ever.
Now.
You mean this year?
That's what I mean for the 2024
I thought you were announcing his retirement. Cody Stoots had it first. Christian Harris retired.
No, but I did that with CJ Fedorowicz one time, and everybody made fun of me. I said, CJ Fedorowicz isn't playing football again, and he retired.
You're right.
That's right.
What's he up to now?
I don't know. I thought he might have ended up as like a coach somewhere or something, but he just disappeared from the football world. Old CJ Fedorowicz.
He was kind of nice though.
He turned into it felt like he was getting his footing as concussions forced him to retire from football. So it felt like he was kind of, coming into his own, and then see you later. I didn't expect to spend part of my Friday talking about CJ Fedorowicz, but here we are.
Well, the other beauty about CJ Fedorowicz is like he got through the first contract. Like I think he played 4 years. He seems like a guy who could live off of like $50K a year. Just go to Iowa and chill. Like CJ Fedor, I think CJ Fedorowicz can handle his money wisely.
Yeah, it seems like he probably isn't one of those guys that just kind of like, it would be on one of those like 30 for 30s about blowing all their money or something. That doesn't.
Yeah, if you do a CJ Fedorowicz 30 for 30, then you're probably going to get fired. That's not.
No, I'm just saying like that was like one of the first 30 for 30s was like guys that blew all their money.
I know.
It was like one of the first ones back in the day. I will say a quick fun CJ Fedorowicz story. The very first day of training camp, his rookie year, was also the first year of Bill O'Brien, and Mike Vrabel was on the coaching staff. And it was like the first day of training camp. They ran like a kickoff drill, and CJ Fedorowicz was on kickoff return, and Vrabel just lights him up. He's like, Fedorowicz, when you're half-assing it in week 17 and we lose and we're one game out of the playoffs, I want you to remember that you didn't pay attention in practice. And he had a couple more choice words, but it's like the first day, the first play of like kickoff return, and Vrabel was just lighting Fedorowicz up. It was pretty funny.
Vrabel's a very mean cusser. He's not a funny cusser. It's very, very mean. But the big news from the injury report, just to reset that here on S&L Friday edition, reaction to the final injury report. Be sure to subscribe on all podcast platforms. Stoots, Locker, Texans, Fadakasi and Autry out of practice. Autry listed as questionable on the injury report. Speaking of D-lines.
Huge opportunity for the Texans defensive line as well. This is the worst pass blocking offensive line via pressure allowed in the league. Now, other teams have allowed more quarterback pressures totally. Other teams have allowed more sacks, but these guys allow the most consistent pressure in the league, the worst in the league at pass blocking. Remember, the last time they did that was against New England, when New England was really bad, and they lit up New England pretty good too. So
Gustavo says, y'all think they'll make Tua retire too?
I got a hunch if Fedorowicz had 140 million reasons to stick around, he would have.
Yeah, I don't think that was as much of a thing. Speaking of D-lines, the Tennessee Titans have a pretty good one. Don't take my word for it. Let's hear from ball cap Bobby Slowick at the podium talking about the Tennessee D-line.
Really good. I mean, their front five is probably for us, I would say, in totality, the best we faced this year. Obviously, Simmons is a heck of a player. He shows up all over the place. He does everything, rushes inside, rushes outside. They have him drop sometimes, and he's still a factor even when he's dropping. Like you always have to be aware of where Simmons is. Sweat's been doing a really good job for him. He jumps off the tape on the inside. He's a really, really big, strong man, hard to move, makes a lot of plays in the backfield. Their edges are solid. Landry is obviously a really good rusher, good in the run game. Arden Key I've been with in San Fran, obviously familiar with him. He can go play. And Joseph is like still, I mean, a really solid interior player. Like they got people at every position. So that's a big challenge for us to be aware of in really both phases. And the starting point of, everything we talk about as far as game plan this week.
All right. Colton says Bobby orders a well-done steak on charcoal. And that actually sounds pretty good to me. I'm not even going to front.
He's a big, strong man.
We'll get to that in a second.
I'm going to have to make that a drop.
Shout out to Logan. He's on Swarm in the Soup. He says, if we have all healthy defense, how do you think we fare against top teams come playoff time? I think you'll be in any game. Like if this is a completely healthy defense, like you're not getting blown out. So that's the best way I can put it. Now, will the offense be able to overcome it? Who knows? But a fully healthy defense, D-line, corners, all that. Yeah, you're in every game, and that travels too. You're going to hear me say that till the end of the year. An elite defense, it might not win you a championship, but it travels. That's the best way I can put. Like defense doesn't win championships, but it does travel. Especially like at the end of the season, whenever games get a little bit uglier.
Yeah, you're going to have one of the better defenses come playoff time if they're healthy, and I echo Landry's point. You got a shot in every game against every opponent. Doesn't matter who the opponent is. The AFC elites, some team that gets hot, makes the playoffs, has the 5 seed. You got a shot against every single team when you line it up with the healthy Texans defense.
Now, something tells me, and there's 2 things that I think that you just mentioned to connect what we've talked about so far when it comes to the trenches. Being a little bit thin on the D-line is not as consequential against the Titans because of the previously mentioned data that you've shown with their offensive line and their inability to win at the line of scrimmage. So that's one. The other one is that the Texans' weakness in the interior is going to be facing their biggest challenge. But I do think that because of how much of a defensive specialist DeMeco Ryans is and how much of a grasp he has of D linemen, I feel like, just kind of, they're probably going to try to make T'Vondre Sweat run a little bit. I think that they are probably going to anticipate making T'Vondre Sweat run from sideline to sideline and tire him out. Don't ask me why I think that. I just have a little bit of a hunch that that's what's going to happen.
Well, I mean, it's not easy to turn around the Titanic. So, you get him headed one way, you take the play the other way. You take the play the other way.
Was that a heartless analogy, or was that like a good analogy? I'm trying to think. Because the Titanic sunk, so you're basically just hiking your leg on that.
I could use a different boating.
Just at a cruise ship, Cody. You insensitive weasel.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's not easy to turn around a tugboat.
There you go.
It's not easy to turn around a tugboat. So you get him headed one way, you take the play the other way, and he's a non-factor in the play.
Damn Titanic. Goodness gracious.
The one thing about Sweat is not known as a pass rusher, coming off of a good pass rush game. And you think about the 3 guys that he's
not a bad pass rusher, man.
Right. Like he had a lot of success rushing the passer at Texas. He's got a strength and quickness in his start that can have him win a rep quickly. And then all of a sudden, you damn sure don't want 362 pounds, and that might be being generous, laying on top of CJ Stroud.
Nice of you.
So he's coming off of a really impressive pass rushing performance for him compared to some of the games that he's played this season. Like, you've got to be ready to handle what he brings to the table. Oh, by the way, one of the most underrated defensive linemen in all of football, and Jeffrey Simmons, is there with him on the defensive line.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be what to keep an eye on. Like if you're someone who likes to watch the trenches, and we have a lot of viewers / listeners that pride themselves, oh, I love the trenches and hard-nosed football and stuff. This is definitely the game for you, for sure. And another big reason why is Tim Settle. Tim Settle has been a pleasant surprise, to say the very least. I told him I considered him a surprise during his media availability. And we asked Matt Burke, you asked Matt Burke a question, and then I asked the follow-up just about Tim Settle's game and what he brings to the table and the whole process of bringing Tim Settle to Houston.
Yeah, D'Amico Ryan said that Tim Settle is a really intelligent defensive tackle. So I had defense coordinator Matt Burke kind of explain that, and then you'll hear what Landry talked about as well with Matt Burke.
Tim Settle. Yeah, I don't know if you guys spend a lot of time with him. I feel like his personality belies his intelligence sometimes, you know what I mean? Like you have an impression of him and he's not. And you don't think of D tackles like that often, you know what I mean? But just his awareness of like the blocks he's getting and the protections. And I mean, we do a lot, like especially I feel like we talked maybe last week about, people trying to take Daniil away and the protections and stuff. And so like you have to have an understanding of, hey, if they're sliding this way, we have to do this, or we have to counter this, or why we're calling this pressure because we're trying to attack this front or put you in this position. And I would say he's probably one of our better guys at understanding all those little nuances of what we're trying to get done in the game plan. And sometimes like you don't want those guys sometimes you don't want your D tackles to think too much. But Tim's shown a really good job of being able to grasp sort of big picture stuff, which sort of then can translate into you doing more with him, just putting him in those spots because he knows why you're doing it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Hey, we're going to overload you here because of this. We're anticipating this block. Now you rush this way and it'll be successful, you know what I mean? And so I think some guys you can't necessarily talk to like that, but Tim has just shown an ability to really grasp some of those big picture understandings. And to me, that's showing in like his success and his production in the system because he's taking some of the big picture stuff and understanding, sort of playing more anticipatory like defense for him.
When you see Tim doing what he's doing, he said it was just about opportunity, and he's having a career year, but he said that's always been the type of player he's been. Is there ever like a pleasant surprise, like where maybe you look at tape and the guy's not necessarily showing something, but then you get him in front of you and you're like, oh, this guy is even better than we thought he would be?
I would say, I'm sure that happens. I would say with Tim, like that was part of our evaluation process. Like, again, when we evaluate for this front, we don't, not everyone plays the style that we play. So when you're watching tape of free agents or college players, like you're trying to sort of project that and piece through and say, okay, if, is this guy capable of playing in our system and what does that look like? And so I think he was a guy that the organization identified early to say, hey man, like he's got some skills that translate if we ask him to do it. I would say Mario is a very similar, you know what I mean? Like that we look at guys and say, hey, I think this translates to what we do, and that there's maybe putting them in the system, maybe boost some of the success and lets him play a little bit more freely or play up to his maybe talent level or skill level. So I think that's part of our process when we evaluate those guys for sure.
All right, there you go. That's Matt Burke. You know what, Matt? You know what I bet is something about Matt Burke? I bet you he's one of those guys who all the way from I forgot how old his kid is. I think he has like some young kids. All the way through their entire collegiate or school career, whatever. I bet he's going to be able to help them with their homework like so easily. I bet you bring in like some trigonometry or something like that, where most parents are stumped, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, this is how you do it." Or they ask him like a history question, he's like, "Oh yeah, it was actually in 1700 and blah 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 blah. You didn't know this." Like he just seems like someone that's like a really good parent homework helper.
Okay, I do get that vibe. And I mean, I remember the conversation when he was announced as the defensive coordinator, some of the different things that he gets into.
Dude, he's like a run from the bulls type.
Yeah, he's like the most interesting man in the world. He's climbing mountains, those people who have
Ivy
those
League.
type of active lifestyles with that background, they probably are very good helpers with the homework.
Ivy League. But yeah, the Tim Settle thing I do think is interesting because I know they can sit there and they can say, oh, we knew all along what Tim Settle is. No, you did not. Like, y'all tried to get Eric Armstead, and you tried, like, it's a great pivot, and it speaks to your ability to develop players. So it doesn't lower the impressiveness of what Tim Settle is. But if you knew that this is what you were going to get out of Tim Settle, you don't even think about trading for Eric Armstead. Quite frankly, you might have given him a 4-year deal, 4-year 20 instead of 2-year 6.
If you knew this was Tim Settle, he's making a lot more than $3 million a year over 2 years. $3 million per year over 2 years.
Or you just try to get him like 16 for 4.
You know what was like? There was an element of we know what Settle can do, because if you remember, Landry, he missed like all of training camp and then was like there for like the last day. And then boom, he was on the roster. And I know there was kind of like okay, well, I mean, what does Tim Settle have? Well, I guess we'll find out because he's on the roster. Like, he had a guaranteed roster spot. And, it started slow for him, not as many opportunities. And then when he got his opportunities, he's been fantastic. So
been unbelievable.
It's a really good job by Caserio identifying him, getting the deal done. Really good job by the defensive coaching staff and the D'Amico Ryans getting him ready and maximizing what he does.
Logan on the soup.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
Do you think Bobby will try and scheme any outside run zone to offset the interior? Yes, I do. A lot.
Yeah.
I think they're not running at Tavondre Sweat. Like, they're not doing that.
This is one of those like they've had some moments in previous weeks where they've tried to get the outside stuff working. It hasn't worked, and they've had to go to more inside stuff, and Mixon's just made it work. I don't know that is as viable of an option as it has been in previous weeks because of the interior defensive linemen that the Titans do have. So they've got to be successful. They run left a lot. So Laramie Tunsil's got to be ready to get out there, throw some blocks. They got to have the tight ends ready to take care of their business out there on the edges. The wide receivers have to block well. And they may need to sneak out to the right a couple times with Titus Howard, just kind of get Howard moving. And again, the tight ends and wide receivers blocking, because unless they just have the magic elixir for Tavondre Sweat, running it right up the middle or running some of that cut back towards the middle stuff's not going to be very effective.
No, and the thing about, players that you consider 2-down defensive linemen is it's well, damn it. I was about to say something and then, God, never mind.
Okay.
Damn it.
Also, as the are you going to go where I'm getting ready to go?
I was going to say, like, it's not like teams just run the first 2 downs anymore in today's NFL. And then I thought, well,
run, pass, punt, Bobby does.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I was saying. I was like, well, it's not like they're just going to run twice like back in the day with, Gilbert Brown and the Packers. But then, yeah, well, they might do that.
The chat said it, and I think we've talked about it. I've talked about it this week, but a well-timed screen is going to eat this Titans defense alive. But you got to execute it. Guys got to be on their P's and Q's. A well-timed screen is going to eat them up.
Knowing Bobby, he's going to try to. This is from James Clancy. Knowing Bobby, he's going to try to run up the middle because he thinks they will think he's going outside, but he's really smarter. But then, so basically, what he's saying is that
he's doing that. That I know that that I know.
He thinks that Bobby overthinks it, and he thinks, well, they think I'm going to do this, so I'm going to do what the opposite of that. He doesn't just do what they think. That's possible. That could happen. Speaking of knowing, Frank Ross, this was impressive. This was an impressive display by Frank Ross. We saw the Texans stop the fake punt against the Cowboys. Apparently, all that tape study by Frank Ross was the reason why the Texans knew that was going to happen.
Going into it, they had it up versus Philly, and you see it, and you see Brian Anger get a signal from the personal protector, and you see Anger lift his hat, and then it gets logged up, and he quickly punts the ball, and it was so minute, and we caught it, and so that carried over, and then our look dictated that same fake to be called for them and fell into our lap. That doesn't matter, though. It's the players, everybody was prepared, and it kind of executed, and it looks good and everything, but how does that work, whether you're executing a fake or stopping something, a key single block like your course? the same thing for John to pop off the ball, show good rush demeanor, pop off the ball, and then execute the hit was everything. So huge moment. It's essentially a turnover and a takeaway for us, and leads us into, what is it, the 36-yard line going in. So we'll take that all day. It's an exciting moment.
There you go. All right. Yeah. Shout out to Frank Ross. By the way, Joshua bringing up a pretty good point. He says the Titanic is actually a very good analogy, seeing as how the reason it sank is because it couldn't turn out of the way of the iceberg. Okay.
So will Juice Scruggs be the iceberg to Devondre Sweat's Titanic?
I don't know.
So Frank Ross talking about special teams. We don't get too deep into special teams here, but every now and then it is a worthwhile conversation point. What he talked about being ready for the fake. Texans Cap put out a bunch of stats on his Twitter account. It's one of the more active special teams units that they play against. Like Tennessee returns a lot, and they allow a lot of returns and return yards as well. So there's some hidden yards to be had, especially, if you have some trouble running the football early while you're trying to get in your bearings against this defense. There's some hidden yards to be had from a special team standpoint by this Texans team because of the poor punt coverage that the Titans are a part of.
Interesting.
Fun fact for you.
Thank you, man. I'm much smarter now from that one.
Okay, well, when they return a punt on Sunday for a touchdown, I want you to remember that at 4:26 on Friday, I gave the caveat we don't usually talk about special teams unless it's important, and then it's important this week. So I want you to remember that. I'll be sitting right next to you, and I'll say, hey, remember on Friday at 4:26 when I told you this? You son of a gun.
Well, the thing about it is the Titans, it's going to have to be a well-balanced effort for them to win this game, I think, because we can talk about the weaknesses and stuff, but they're not a great team. They have a lot of weaknesses. They're not good. So that's kind of where the Texans are with this whole thing when it comes to playing this Titan squad.
Their offense is
trash. Their quarterback's trash. Gosh Allen's terrible. He's not good.
It's offensive to watch sometimes. They are really bad, and to have a offensive minded head coach, he's really only had one game this year. Will Levis, that you'd be like, yeah, okay, all right, good job, pretty good job by you.
Well, last week there was some encouragement, I guess, because I guess they thought he kind of battled a little bit, but you're looking at their injury report. Calvin Ridley, full participant, so it looks like he's going to go. Jeffrey Simmons was just resting. He's good. They put Snead on IR. His season's over.
Yeah, he hadn't been playing. He'd been hurt for a few weeks.
So, yeah, there you go. So you will get Calvin Ridley versus Derek Stingley. I'll take that matchup every time, to be honest with you.
Easy matchup.
Calvin Ridley has given a lot of the fans headaches because there's been times where the effort's kind of been questioned a little bit. So we'll see what that looks like. That was probably the worst contract of the offseason, I would say. Well, maybe you can say Snead. I don't know. Maybe the Titans can just face off in that.
They've had some bad contracts. Will Levis has only had one game this year where he hasn't thrown an interception. That was against the Chargers a couple of weeks ago. He even threw an interception against Miami where he only attempted 4 passes. So he's bad. Like,
he's terrible.
It's like the remember the Carson Wentz, how bad he was that the Eagles had to get rid of him. It's that bad and maybe worse. Like, he does some just absolutely boneheaded things with the football that just don't make any sense.
Well, Carson Wentz at least had the MVP year before he went down, though. This guy's always been this.
Yeah, this guy's always been his ceiling is bad Carson Wentz.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
Mark asks, will Bobby be on the hot seat if it's a close game? No. There'll be people probably pissed at him and blaming him, but Bobby's job is safe no matter what for the remainder of the season. So I don't think Bobby's going to fully capture the hearts of the strong majority of the fan base. But yeah, there's nothing that's going to put Bobby in the on the hot seat or anything like that. Like, that could happen in this game. Not going to happen.
No, they're not firing Bobby Slowick in the middle of the year.
Yeah, they're not doing that. But we will see what happens. It could be a very good weekend for your Houston Texans because if they win and the Colts lose, the magic number to win the division will be 2. It will be 2. Right now, the magic number is 4. I know it's early. That's a low number.
I got news for you. It's gonna be 2 by the end of the weekend.
All right. Well, there you go. You heard it here first. Cody Stoots with the prediction.
Do you have a gambling lean on this one?
I don't. The 8 kind of scares me a little bit. I think this is going to be a prop week for me, where I'm gonna look at all the props and just see where to go there. But I'm not leaning one way or the other. I think I like Tank Dell's props this week. I think I like his over in yards. And I think I like Schultz. It's just so low right now. Like it's just consistently so low to where it's like basically 2 catches and he surpasses it just based on what they ask him to do. So I'm kind of leaning that way.
It's probably a pretty low return based on the likelihood of it happening, but you could probably get a Nico Collins touchdown with a Will Levis interception, and it should pay pretty nicely.
Yeah, I would say
almost plus 250.
Yeah, I would say that the Will Levis interception is probably pretty.
That's a nice little just like add into your prop parlay if you want to do that.
It'll be interesting. We'll see how it goes. I'll figure it out a little bit later on. Appreciate everyone for coming through. This has been another edition of S&L. Be sure to subscribe on all podcast platforms. Jacob on the Super. Would you rather have Bobby Slowick fired or would you rather have him turn it around? It seems like people are pulling for the hot seat. I want him to turn around. I like Bobby
turn it
Slowick.
around for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think the offensive line is kind of limiting him. I thought he called a good game against the Cowboys. Yeah, there's no reason to root against Bobby Slowick. Good dude.
He's going no hat Sunday, right?
Then I might change my answer if he's going back to the ball cap.
If he walks out there with a hat on, I might have to quickly scramble and bet on the Titans.
He doesn't want it.
He doesn't want it.
He doesn't want it if he goes out there with the hat on.
What if he wears a stocking cap? That'd be a different type of hat.
That would be kind of douchey because it's like 75 degrees. So yeah,
perfect temperature inside.
What is he, like a hipster? You can go play some hacky sack out there too before the game.
What if that's
like marijuana?
You got D'Amico over on the sidelines doing the what's that smell, and Bobby's over here just like, yeah, run it, man.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Be sure to subscribe, like, right along. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, we are all in it together. Talk to you tonight. We'll also talk to you on Sunday.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.